Donald Trump's plan to just move past coronavirus as if it's been solved in the next few weeks, that is continuing along, and now we even have a potential date. According to yesterday's press conference, he's interested in restarting everything on Easter. Here he is making this announcement.
Ultimately, the goal is to ease the guidelines and open things up to very large sections of our country as we near the end of our historic battle with the invisible enemy. It'll go on for a while, but we win. We'll win. I said earlier today that I hope we can do this by Easter. I think that would be a great thing for our country, and we're all working very hard to make that a reality. We'll be meeting with a lot of people to see if it can be done. Easter is a very special day for many reasons. For me, for a lot of our friends, that's a very special day. And what a great timeline this would be. Easter as our timeline, what a great timeline that would be.
Easter, it's a very special day for him because he totally is an actual Christian who totally believes in God. That's a true thing that is true. But anyway, he said in that video, as we near the end of our war with our invisible enemy, it's been long, but we win. We win. First of all, he's implying that he's been fighting it for a long time. He's declaring that we're about to be done. This seems like madness to me. Emma, what are your thoughts?
Well, 60% of Americans disagree with you, but yeah,
we're gonna get to
that. There's something that he's trying to tap into, which is everyone has this desire to return to normalcy. So when you have the president basically saying, "Oh, you can see the horizon, we're close to the end," that plays well politically, but in reality, it's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. And again, I've made this point to you off air. Easter, it changes every year, and I forget what day it is, so I don't even know when he's talking about. It could be tomorrow, and it could be at the end of next
So
month.
I did some fact checking. It turns out it is Sunday, April 12th.
Okay.
So, but that's like a couple weeks away, really. Like 3 weeks away.
Do you think Jesus is going to rise again, or is he just going to stay in self-isolation?
If I were him, oh my God, that's actually a pretty good reference. Look at you. You know more about the Bible than Donald Trump does, even though it's a very special day to him. So look, if that date seems arbitrary, that is only because it's 100% arbitrary, and that will become clear in this next video where he's asked by Caitlin Collins about what exactly it was that led to that date being chosen. Let's watch.
Mr. President, you just reiterated that you hope to have the country reopened by Easter. You said earlier you would like to see churches packed on that day. My question is, you have two doctors on stage with you. Have either of them told you that's a realistic timeline?
I think we're looking at a timeline. We're discussing it. We had a very good meeting today. If you add it all up, that's probably 9 days plus another 2.5 weeks. It's a period of time that's longer than the original 2 weeks. So we're going to look at it. We'll only do it if it's good, and maybe we do sections of the country. We do large sections of the country. That could be too. But we're very much in touch with Tony and with Deborah on everything we're doing.
Who suggested
I
that?
just thought it was a beautiful time. It would be a beautiful time, a beautiful timeline.
So that was
It's a
based
great
on
day.
any of the data?
It was based on a certain level of weeks from the time we started.
She said, what doctor's advice were you using to establish this timeline? And he says, well, we're working on a timeline. And then asked what it was that led to that date. He said, it's a beautiful time, a beautiful time, a beautiful timeline, a beautiful day. That's why he might tell states around the country to go back to normal, and Republican governors will 100% listen to whatever he says, no matter the human cost.
A beautiful timeline was the alternate title for Interstellar. Fun fact.
Was it really?
No.
Okay. Anything to improve that movie. But anyway, yeah.
Oh, I agree with you. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, hey, we agree on something in pop culture as of 10 years ago. Anyway, so look, he said, let's go to this. He said he'd like to see, quote, this is amazing. He'd like to see churches packed full of people for Easter.
Oh my God.
But a chill runs up your spine, and it's not just a symptom. It's but that the timeline wasn't based on data indicating the public health risk could be gone by then. Rather, the president said it just thought it was a beautiful time. Trump said he would listen to the advice of his top health officials. So it's not just that he wants to restart things, but he immediately, I want to see crowds. I can't stand not seeing crowds of people. And I just want to say this. I'm terrible at making predictions. We are still going to, in all likelihood, in 3 weeks, the number of cases will still be increasing on a day-to-day basis. In many of these places that he's going to say you should be crowding into places of worship to maximally spread coronavirus to each other, we're still going to be seeing more and more people. Like, we won't have reached, I think New York, Cuomo was just saying, like, the peak need time is going to be like April 21st, he thinks. So possibly a week after Trump tells everyone to go back to GameStop or whatever, we could still see a need for tens of thousands of ventilators in the New York City area alone.
Exactly. And I mean, we could see some gains because everyone is self-isolating, but when you have the president on TV, who a majority of Americans agree is doing a good job, saying that it will be over in that week's time, that's just not the reality. So we could see a little bit of plateauing and then another spike, which is so much worse. And, like, I get that this is a large country, and, everyone's not going to be paying attention and listening, but and this isn't China. We are living really in an economy, not in a society, not saying that China's society is great. They at least feel a sense of fealty to their other fellow citizens, to what their government says. They're going to pay attention. They were able to actually curb this because they listened to what the government says. I mean, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but when you have the head of the government here basically saying, oh yeah, go ahead, go back to work, do whatever you need to do, people are going to pay attention because that's the natural inclination of our society. Everyone is out for themselves. We fetishize individualism. And so once you get the go-ahead, that's what's going to happen. And it's just going to get worse and worse.
Yeah, there are going to be so many people at that point. They're going to be just looking for someone to tell them that things are going back to normal because they're going to be going stir crazy. And honestly, there are still so many states that haven't done any sort of lockdowns, that things are still going normal. There should be, not only should we not be talking about on Easter, just, everybody head to the movies. Isn't there a new Marvel movie coming out? Like, let's go see Black Widow. But that multiple states should be told right now, you need to institute the same sort of social distancing, the same sort of, safety at home, a stay-at-home order. And he's not doing that. And, anyway, here's another issue. If you're like a Trump fan and you're hearing Trump say, we've almost beaten our hidden enemy, that message is being reinforced by the other people that you have, unfortunately and tragically, chosen to trust, like Glenn Beck, who's been telling you he'd rather die than kill the country. This is the guy who did, I don't know how many shows about death panels in the ACA, now thinks older people just might have to die to not kill the country. Let's see, Breitbart has an article on why Trump is right to reopen the economy. So if you go there, you're primed to think Easter's a good time. We've got Dennis Prager saying that attitude that the only value is saving a life, that attitude leads to appeasement. No one can die, then it's not a war. Yeah, but under your logic, if it's a war, it's one that he is surrendering on very quickly. He was willing to go at it. It's been like a week, basically, since California lockdown, and he's already like, come on, I'm getting bored. Can we just go back to the way things were?
I know. Aren't you supposed to be Mr. Tough Guy? You just can't watch another Netflix film and you want to surrender in this war. I mean, again, like, what are the casualties? Who are we fighting? We're fighting, yes, the coronavirus, but you're saying that capitalism is the one that has to win in the end? No, it's human. It's human life. That's the war that's being fought. And so to say that this is all to save the country, no, this is to save your pocketbooks. It's to save industry. It's to save the notion this economy can sustain itself, by the way. And doesn't this show how precarious our entire economy is? We're talking about how precarious our healthcare system is. Perhaps there could be some sort of recognition that we could make the economy more foolproof. We should be making the economy more foolproof. Mm-hmm. But instead, they just want to return to the system that is and save that. I hate the false equivalent of the country and the economy and their portfolios. It's not the same thing. The country is made up of individuals and people. It's not made up of stocks and bonds. And that's what we should be focusing on, not just this paper tiger of an economy.
Yeah. If the system requires the sacrifice of millions of elderly Americans to restart it, it does not deserve to be restarted. And that's why I'm glad that we're going to be talking later on about how people are sort of waking up to some of the fundamental issues with the system that the coronavirus has not created but has revealed, is that we need to solve this problem, but we can also set ourselves up to, in doing so, solve a lot of problems that we had prior to COVID-19, that we should not go back to the way things were, because the way things were horrific in their own way. It was a more hidden way. It wasn't talked about necessarily. It didn't drive headlines, but people were dying needlessly long before COVID-19. And the same solutions that could get us through this pandemic and the pandemic that is going to come after it can also solve with all the people who, because they don't have access to health insurance, they've gone medically bankrupt, people who are suffering with chronic conditions like heart disease, diabetes, those sorts of things, they can be helped and protected too. And I hope coming out of this that people are awakened to some of these realities.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.